Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is a new installment of Revolutions, the ongoing diary of my spins. I hope you've been well. Here is what I've been playing in the past few days. A way to connect with the community, say hi, interact. You know the drill. Today is Sunday morning. You can see what time it is even above me. And normally I start with classical music, but today I made an exception. The closest thing to classical music, the third ear band, a band that's rarely discussed, really on the VC quote unquote. The third ear band were a band who hailed from London, and this is the second album from 1970, and I, I guess for me they sound like proto-ambient. They've got this kind of, free folk, psychedelic folk mixed with drone. It's all instrumental and very, very brooding and very atmospheric. Well, a little bit like the cover. And I think they laid the groundwork for a lot of other sort of ambient music that sort of followed after this. It is a mixture of atmospheres, I guess. I mean, it's a beautiful album through and through, and something that I pull out here, now and then, every now and then, just to remind myself. But it's just very atmospheric and very just gorgeous kind of, yeah, music full of dread, I guess. And I also play this one, but not this morning. I played this a couple of days ago. Music from Macbeth. Again, super, super twisted, dark, free folk. This is a little bit akin to Comus, but in a sort of more less gruesome kind of manner. And you can see my copy is kind of water damage, but I don't really care because it plays pretty well. It's a first. Both of these are first pressings on Harvest. I think if I had to recommend you one, I think I would recommend the second album that I've just showed you here, because it's probably a bit more, it probably is more of a gateway to other things. I don't know why this week I was just stuck in a UK 70s, UK prog, you would say, kind of funk, I pulled at things that I don't normally play, like for example this Hatfield in the North, which I think is I can't remember, I think it's the second record, I might be wrong, or it could be the first record, it doesn't matter, you can correct me. All I know is, look, Hatfield North, a fantastic Canterbury prog outfit, comprising of the great Richard Sinclair, who is also in Caravan, obviously, Pip Pile, Dave Stewart also in Caravan. And members of Henry Cow and Robert Wyatt also appears on this. There he is in his wheelchair. So it's kind of a who's who of that kind of scene, and these records are so, in a way, representative of what they were trying to do. Kind of whimsical, very very melodic brand of prog. Just almost the antithesis of the prog I don't like, which is Genesis, and yes, almost kind of like on the polar opposite, flirting with that kind of avant prog rock in a position. And in saying this, I also played Camel, which, well, Camel I guess is closer to, in a way, to Caravan and Hatfield North than it is to Genesis, but in saying this, it is kind of symphonic as well in parts. But I've really enjoyed this. It's kind of there's a hard quality to this music. They rock and groove hard in parts with this. Mood Madness from 1976. So I don't know. I just got them on my shelf. I don't play them very often. But this band here, I wanna make a big deal about this band here because I love this band. Now, I often jokingly say that my favorite UK group of the 1970s is Traffic, and it probably is because I'll give you a couple of good reasons. I played the Eagles when the Eagle Flight, which is probably the last great record that came out in around 1974 or something, or 74, 75, thereabouts. All on, obviously, on Island Records. I also played Welcome to the Canteen, very underrated live record with a fantastic 10-minute long version of Dear Mr. Fantasy. I mean, that doesn't really sell to you. I mean, with the great Rebop Kwakuba on percussion there as well. And I also, just this morning, played Last Exit, which is also massively underrated. I mean, this record, which obviously I have on CD, is also has also a really great live section. The second side, if you will. The first side has got some of the best Traffic songs that nobody really cares about. Anyway, the reason why I'm saying that Traffic is probably my favorite group of the 1970s is for various reasons, but I think what I love about them is that they always manage to blur the boundaries between what is, loosely thought as progressive rock, jazz rock, British folk. All this is kind of melded into a package which is unique. No one sounds like Traffic. They've got this singer, organist, guitar player, Steve Winwood, who is an absolute genius. Everything he's released is basically worth listening to. Even his solo records are really fantastic. He has this blue-eyed soul voice, which you can recognize instantly. His organ player. He's a child prodigy. He was discovered by Chris Blackwell randomly in a pub in Birmingham when he was about 15 years old. And, it probably epitomizes the Island record sound from the 70s. And I just think that these records are cheap heat. They're records that you can find everywhere. And if you've been dismissing them, I would give them a go because I think I personally love Traffic. I love Joan Barleycorn Must Die, which I could have showed you. I love the live record On the Road, very cheaply attained. But I'd recommend that you listen to Last Exit. I'd recommend that you listen to those two records. And that you don't see them as like a one-trick pony that did, like, I don't know, Dear Mr. Fantasy, for example. I'm just saying, it's a case for Traffic. Since I'm talking about folk, progressive folk, that kind of thing, here is a beautiful record from Australia. The band is called Extradition, and the record is called Hush. So Extradition made this just one record in 1971. It was originally released on Sweet Peach Records in Australia, but I mean, these records are very hard to come by, and when you can see them, they're like $500 a pop. So I've got a reissue which I'm perfectly happy with. Sounds really great. This is just a bridge between something like Fairport Convention and something a tad more psychedelic. You can think of, for example, Donovan, but with a Sandy Denny kind of approach. If that sort of, but also it's more left field than those bands. Obviously, I was talking about Comus before, or talking about stuff like Linda Perhacs, or it's more in that sort of vein where it's acid folk, but not exactly straight. I would recommend that you take a listen to. I'm sorry, I'm not very eloquent this morning, but not very articulate, but I feel that you could take a listen to it. and I don't think I'm going to be very articulate about this one. So since I'm talking about an Australian psychedelic folk record, here is a New Zealand psychedelic folk record, which this time is not a reissue; it's an original pressing. The band is called Turia, almost like the Alice Coltrane reference, and the album's called Waiting. Um, this band was from Auckland, I think. Yeah, Auckland. Well, distributed by a label in Wellington, but the PO box is in Auckland, so I guess it's Auckland. Um, this is wonderful. It came out in 1985, so it's a little bit out of its kind of context of you'd expect a disc like this to come out in the 70s at the very least, but the fact that it's come out in 85 makes it kind of a courier of the time. It's you know it's somewhere between something like Tim Buckley and you know it it's difficult to define. It has this quite experimental aspect to it, but it is also very palatable at the same time. So you've got these songs which but then there's moments where they just go into freak out mode. I'd encourage you to take a listen to Turia and just have a just listen to it for yourself. In a much more mainstream way, I pulled out my copy of Surf's Up by the Beach Boys. It's an Aussie press, very flimsy, but it's it sounds alright anyway. I think Surf's Up is probably my favorite Beach Boys record. I mean, it sounds a little bit wanky to say this, but at the same time, I feel that some of these songs, I don't think the Beach Boys have done better, like Feel Flows, or Till I Die, or Surf's Up, or even Disney Girls. Gosh, Disney Girls is like a 3-minute masterpiece. Such a beautiful, sweet melody, and the vocals are just pitch perfect. It's just, but Till I Die, for me, Till I Die, Surf's Up, and the glorious Feel Flows. Yeah, I think this came out in 1971 from memory. It's just a unique album. Is a bizarre thing. I mean, I love Roxy music. I've always talked very highly of Roxy music. And in my last video, I think I was talking about the solo Phil Manzanera record, which is wonderful, and again, a super cheap kind of like classic. And here is a record you rarely see. It's the solo Andy McKay record. He was the obviously the saxophone player in Roxy Music, and I would love to say that it's as good as the Phil Manzanera solo record. It's sadly not. It's kind of it's got it's a mostly instrumental affair. With some vocals. It has Andy McKay on saxophone, oboe, and a little bit of voice. You've got Phil Manzanera on guitar and saxophone treatment. Right, Roger Glover, who was in Deep Purple, appears on this as well. Eddie Jobson on piano. So the cast is pretty. It's actually pretty solid. The cover itself is what the hell. I mean, In Search of Eddie Riff. Was this Eddie Riff? Now, anyway, what I want to say is it's a little bit hit and miss, and you've got like it's become a rocket launcher, just about. I just love the iconography on this, and this came out on Island Records, which makes it in my eyes just something that I wanted to have anyway, but don't go and listen to this and think it's going to be a masterpiece. It's not. It's a curious, it's an interesting record, and it's mostly kind of at times schmaltzy saxophone ballads, but it's something that I like about that. Not all music has to be mind blowing. Here's a wonderful record that you should probably want to get into. Again, Cheap Heat 101, China Crisis. This is the band. They were from Liverpool. They released quite a few records in the early 80s. This is the first record, which is a wonderful kind of bridge between dream pop, ambient pop, post-punk. But to me, it has a very sort of lilting kind of uplifting, just delicate quality to it. The first song, Seven Sports for All, is pretty rubbish in my opinion. But if you go past that on the record, you will discover some really beautiful micro masterpieces on this. It's just a beautiful record. It was engineered by Gil Norton, who then famously went on to produce the Pixies on their debut album. Very, very cool. 1982, China Crisis. I'd call this kind of ambient pop, art pop, ambient pop, you know. Here is an excellent record by Cabaret Voltaire, which has spun this week, The Voice of America. The band from Sheffield, obviously, with the great Richard H. Kirk and Stephen Malander and Christopher Watson on this from 1981. This is a Japanese pressing of it, actually, that I've got there. Very sort of glitchy, textural, almost krautrock-esque album, you know, as a very sort of krautrock meets experimental electronic music kind of feel. I really, really enjoy this record when I play it. It's a beautiful thing. Staying with electronic music. Last night I've bought this fairly recently because it's a 2023 release, this thing. So this is Earth Tones with Kevin Nathaniel. I think I've already spoken of this record, and it's called Meditations for Synthesizers and with Nbira Munga Nyunga. So this guy, Kevin Nathaniel, is trained in this African instrument, which is like a thumb piano. And what we've got there is just washes of ambience, keyboards, just beautiful, serene, soothing, like, you know, walk into space type of soundscapes. And you've got these just uplifting and beautiful melodies played on this kind of kalimba type of instrument. This is just a mind-blowing kind of little release. It's just to say that it's such a small run, and you know, and nobody would even speak about this. This just takes you places. It's a wonderful little record, and you can probably get this still. I mean, you know, nobody wants these records, but you know, I also played Computer Welt, as it was called. This is the American pressing. I feel it's one of the highlights of the Kraftwerk discography. I mean, I don't need to really speak about this too much. It's just, you know, it's a blueprint for a lot of music from the 80s. I mean, I guess. This I will speak about more, maybe a bit more deeply. I go into my shelves and I just find things that I haven't played for a while, and I saw this Vangelis record, Heaven and Hell, which came out in 1975 on RCA. Is an excellent Vangelis record, which again you could probably get this for next to nothing. I hadn't played this for a few years, I would say, and I was kind of shocked when I listened to it, because you've got this choir and these really highly conceptual pieces um, two kind of suites on one on each side, going for a sort of almost electronic classical feel. Like it's just, this record is kind of mind blowing. It is just a really really phenomenal, ambient experimental piece. Very very ambitious. I feel so. You could get that, and you would probably really enjoy it. I'll continue, and I'll revisit it. So I'll go into soul music now, and some world music. World Nobody likes the term world music anymore, so we'll say music from non-English speaking countries. Um, Here is the fabulous James Mason, "Rhythm of Life." Now, admittedly, it'd be great to have an original of this record because it's a cult classic. I mean, it's just it's amazing boogie funk, basically, kind of spiritual boogie funk. I don't know how else to describe it. James Mason plays guitar, Fender Rhodes, acoustic piano, polymoog, ARP, string guns. The man is a wizard. He's also involved with Tariq Blue, another kind of cult classic of the period. These records came on Chiaroscuro, a great sort of underground label from New York. And I mean, the band was, I think, hailed from New York as well. And you've got here on this Narada Michael Walden as well, who was quite the pedigree. But this has got like stuff like Funny Girl and Rhythm of Life and Sweet Power You Embrace. Just such a fantastic band, and they just, especially like if you listen to Funny Girl, it's got these drums, like, oh my god, like this record's expensive because it's sampled to death, because it's such a fun record. Here is a classic of the kind of smooth soul, pop soul realm, A Quiet Storm by Smokey Robinson. Gave its name to a whole genre of sort of pop soul. Quiet Storm. It was kind of coined by a US DJ, and he made a whole show about this. But this is just a beautiful record from start to finish. I mean, we talk about your Marvin Gaye's and Isaac Hayes, and I think you could put this Smokey Robinson in the same bag. It's just beautifully played, classy music, produced by Smokey Robinson himself, and just finds him in peak form. It's just the title track, which opens the record, is just to die for. Quiet Storm, but also you've got Happy on this. You've got Wedding Song, which is beautiful. Like, kind of, slick, smooth pop soul, but not cheesy. Not cheesy at all, which is great. Because we don't want cheese. Well, here is a cheap heat record that I scooped like a month ago, maybe in a local record store for nothing. It's an original pressing at that too. Sweatband. Sweatband is a side project from George Clinton. And you've got Bernie Worrell on this. You've got Maceo Parker. You've got George Clinton, obviously. Bootsy Collins. So it's a Funkadelic Parliament side project, which is not consistently amazing, but it's a great P-Funk record. I mean, in my opinion, it's just got some of the songs on these, like Hyperspace, Freak to Freak, Body Shop. They're really, really top P-Funk kind of numbers. So yeah, it was cheap enough. Last night it was warm. We spun Mad Villain. It was cool. I enjoyed it. Full stop. What can I say? Um, Same. That's a record that I spun yesterday. The fantastic Mulatu Asadke and the Heliocentrics, which is a record I don't pull out very often, but it's a lovely, lovely record. Very dynamic, funky kind of take on Ethiopian groove. It really brings it to that brings a new level of like, because the Heliocentrics are just such a funky band, and like you get this kind of like almost Ethio jazz funk on this when they turn it up. It's just wow, phenomenal record, and still gettable. I think you can still get from 2009, but it was repressed. Mine is a repress from 2019. So there we go. I've been playing a lot of my sort of Middle Eastern music from my collection, and I pulled out 2 records recently. This Edip Agberam Dasla. So Edip Agberam, he was the group leader. Look at this. It's like Stand Up by Jethro Tull. Isn't that cool? And kind of looks like Stand Up as well. I mean, no, not exactly, but yeah. It's very hard for me to describe this music. It is, obviously Anatolian rock, music that's made with traditional Turkish melodies, instruments, but just brought to a sort of a more psychedelic kind of realm. But when I played this the other day, I sat there thinking to myself, wow, how much music like this must there be that we haven't heard yet? It's just, it's a lovely, I've had these for years, and this one too, which, first, the beards. Let's admire the beards. It's almost like it's almost like a helmet of hair. I think these guys lived in Germany at the time, and they were Turkish immigrants in Germany, and they put out this kind of almost classic Anatolian rock record. Again, very trad sounding, but super funky and psychedelic. Really, really, it's 1979. So I played both of these, and I'm going to finish with a couple of. This morning I found myself playing Clube de Esquina number 2. Nobody talks about the number 2, but there's 2 volumes, and number 2 is fantastic. Probably just as good as number 1, but less classic. Milton Nascimento. Yeah. Last week I spun Free by Ayrton Moreira, the great Brazilian percussionist, and it's just a lovely jazz fusion record with a Brazilian tinge, obviously, with Ron Carter and Stanley Clarke and Chick Corea and Joe Farrell. I mean, it's the cast is amazing. Hubert Laws, Keith Jarrett is on this as well. I mean, when you've got players of that kind of caliber, I mean, you can make bad records for sure, but this is far from a bad record. This is an excellent, excellent Brazilian jazz fusion record on the great CTI, obviously. I recommend. I loved it. I loved listening to it. I need to put my hand on this practically because I don't want to get barred for nothing. So we have a record by the great Hareton Salvanini. So I'm going to put it down now because the back has also got a little bit of inappropriate content for YouTube. Not that I'm a prude or anything, but this record is wonderful. It's a soundtrack, the film I have no idea about. It seems very raunchy though. And it's kind of a folky psych rock, touching on library music record. I replayed it this week. I enjoyed it. Couple more. It was a record I know almost nothing about. West African Cosmos. That was put on my radar by Chris Cole many years ago. Probably about 10, 12 years ago when he showed it first. Came out in 1976. Funny enough, this has got 3 pressings. I was looking on the other day on my Discogs. It's got the original French pressing, but it's got, for some reason, it was pressed in Australia for some reason. I don't know why they decided to press this particular record here. But here is one of the places you can find this. But I've had this for a long time now. I don't know how easy they are to find now. It's kind of, an Afrobeat record, but through the lens of these musicians who lived in Paris at the time. So, there's not much I know about this, apart from the fact that it's dynamite. It's total fire music. But yeah. And the last one that I replayed, is this ambient ethno jazz record, Arica Heaven, which is the reissue, obviously. But I'm very content with that. I have no problem with having this reissue. It sounds really great. The package is nice. They've done a really great job on it, really, and there's some nice liner notes. They're kind of a cult, Arica, and they made several records. All of them are kind of collectible. So there you go. And they lived in America somewhere. They were led by Chilean mystic Oscar Ichazo, and they lived in the mountains. Somewhere in California, maybe, or something. No, it was recorded in New York City. Sorry. See, I'm talking crap. It's interesting. It was apparently an influence on the Holy Mountain, this music. Anyway, love you all. I hope you enjoy this rambling of sorts. And if you could talk to me, that would be fantastic.